Be seated. Well, good morning, St. Margaret's. So good to be with you on this fourth Sunday after the Epiphany. Excited about today, excited about what we've just heard, excited about our annual meeting, which we'll be holding after church this morning. Yes, so we're having our annual meeting, and so as promised, this sermon is going to be more of a meditation. But, you know, I know I've said the last couple of weeks, and it will be a meditation. I think people are starting to worry. But I'll just say I found it really hard to condense this week's lectionary readings into just, a few minutes. It's a really remarkable week in terms of the scripture that we just heard. What's interesting about the lectionary readings this week is that they're all interconnected. It's subtle, but it's there. There is a thread that kind of winds its way through the readings. Each passage of Scripture that we heard just now, they've been about speaking. They've been about testimony. If you heard me talk about testimony, what I most often like to talk about is the fact that every human life contains within itself a testimony. To be human, I think, is to be a walking, talking sign. We never stop communicating. And we communicate in all sorts of ways, Often we communicate, obviously, through our words, but we also communicate through our choices, our actions. Most importantly, perhaps, we communicate through those things which we love. That last word I said just now, love, that I want to talk about this morning. If you were paying attention to the epistle, obviously you wouldn't have missed the importance of love. It's at this point that you might be wondering, what exactly does 1 Corinthians 13 and this topic of love have to do with testimony, have to do with signs? And after all, I think most of us, when we hear 1 Corinthians 13, we kind of associate it with weddings, don't we? I think most people were kind of thinking back to the last wedding they attended. I think we think of 1 Corinthians 13 as this rather poetic language about romantic love. And we don't necessarily consider what a passage like 1 Corinthians 13 might have to say about our daily lives. Well, the first thing I want to say to you is that, over the years, as it's sort of entered our popular culture, that link that exists in our minds between 1 Corinthians 13 and weddings, I think it limits our understanding of what St. Paul was trying to say to us and what his words might say to us this morning. I mean, they're obviously relevant, right, to romantic relationships. What Paul writes is a wonderful roadmap for a life-giving, sustainable relationship. But his words are also so much more. St. Paul's words, I think, provide critical insight into just what it is that Christ calls us into when he calls us into the church. At its simplest, when Christ invites us into his body, he invites us into a community marked first and foremost by love. His love first, and then our love in response. Love is the sign that points us, points others, points our world to the reality of God's self-giving, self-emptying presence in our midst. Love is not the end of what we do. I think sometimes we get tripped up on that. We think of love maybe as the end or the goal or the purpose. No. Our end is God and God alone. God is the most interesting thing about church. But love is our grammar. Love is our logic. Love is that which is meant to season everything we do. Love is meant to shape our choices and our priorities. And in the end, love is what alone can provide the difference between the Spirit truly dwelling in our midst and the pursuit of those seductive yet false idols, self-gratification, self-indulgence, self-glorification. Love is the difference between asking, "What have others done for me?" and seeking to serve others in order that Christ might be glorified. I love the imagery that St. Paul uses to make this point. What St. Paul is saying to us about love and how and why it's a sign is that love opens others to the reality of God's mercy and grace. And without love, we can do nothing. And that's why he says, if you speak in the tongues of angels but have not love, then as a sign you're useless. You're like a clanging cymbal, communicating nothing. Likewise, if you're larger than life, if you know more and have more faith and more insight, if you have some sort of a special relationship with God, but have not love, again, you fail to be a sign. You communicate nothing. According to St. Paul, you are nothing. You're invisible to those around you. And finally, if you work the hardest, if you think of God's kingdom as more or less a transaction, giving up your body to the flames, but have not love, you will never point anyone to anything. Because in the end, all of us, each and every one of us, will someday find out that God's kingdom cannot be bought. It can only be received. Our job is not to do enough in order to be enough. No, our job as the church is simply to be the community that Christ bought with his body and his blood. Our labor is to receive the unending grace and self-giving love of Jesus Christ and to pass on that same grace and that same love to a hurting world. Friends, we're meant to point people to Jesus. And we do that by love. I'll close now with this thought. My hope and my prayer is that as a community we would grow into these words from St. Paul. I hope that they would season the meeting that we're about to have. I hope they would be guideposts along the way. Now, I get it. Church is hard. I understand that. It's hard to believe the best in one another. It's hard to bear each other's burdens. It's hard to move past the theoretical and into the embodied. Loving one another when we err and we stray. Loving one another when we fall short. Loving one another in and through the tempests of our world. That is exactly what God is calling us to do this morning. What God is calling us to do in the year ahead. What God is calling us to always do. Love is our sign. It is our calling card. It is the air that we breathe. It's the waters we are meant to swim in. Let us seek this love from the well of God's unending grace. Let's share this love with each other and with our world. Amen.